Let go, please, Noah begged. Tate's arms made it difficult for Noah to breathe, so the blonde tried to wiggle to gain enough space to breathe. He paused, eyes dark, almost pleading, but didn't immediately loosen his hold. I could feel the tension radiating off him, a mixture of panic, possessiveness, and that desperate need that had been a constant shadow over every interaction lately. Tate, please, I said again, more firmly this time, pushing gently but persistently against his arm. I need some space, just let me breathe. After a tense moment, his grip slackened slightly, though he didn't completely release me. His eyes stayed fixed on me, wide and haunted, as if letting go even a little was the hardest thing he'd ever done. I took a shaky breath, relieved for the small measure of freedom, and glanced back at Talia. Thanks, I muttered softly. Tate behind me remained tense, but the edge had softened for now. I was halfway through my eggs and sausage when Tate's spoon suddenly dipped onto my plate, dropping another bite beside mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. He didn't even ask, just kept eating, calm and focused, like taking care of me was automatic. I blinked, a little startled, glancing at him, but Tate didn't look back. His attention stayed on his own plate, though there was something quiet and deliberate in the gesture, something that made my chest feel oddly warm and tight at the same time. Across the table, Terrence looked up and immediately frowned. The shift in the room was instant. He shook his head slowly, his expression twisting into open disgust like he couldn't quite process what he was seeing. "What are you doing?" he muttered, more to himself than to us, though the judgment in his voice carried easily. Tate didn't respond. Terrence let out a short, disbelieving breath, setting his fork down with a soft clink. "You're acting like a 5-year-old, he added, his tone sharper now, eyes fixed on Tate with a mixture of irritation and confusion. That got Tate's attention. He paused, finally looking up, his expression unreadable but steady, completely unaffected by the reaction, or at least pretending to be. "It's just food," Tate said flatly. But it wasn't just food, and everyone at the table knew it. Terrence slammed his hand on the table, making the plates rattle. His voice was low, harsh, and full of disgust. "Are you going to feed your pet from your own plate, Tate?" he said, eyes narrowing. "Disgusting, absolutely disgusting. We're at the dining room table, not Fire Island, so stop." After a moment of awkward silence had settled over the table, Noah glanced at Talia before finally breaking it. "Talia," he said, "can I ask you something? What's Fire Island?" Noah wondered, blinking with open curiosity as he looked around the breakfast table. Talia coughed, covering her surprise with a sip of juice. "Honey," she began carefully, her tone deliberate, "it's a place where—" She paused, searching for words safer for breakfast. "Don't you dare!" Terrence snapped, his glare locking on Talia. Tension smothered the table. Talia fell silent. Noah sat even more confused. The table went silent, but Noah asked again. "What is?" Terrence snorted, the sound sharp and dismissive. "It's a gross deviation," he said flatly, not even looking at Noah as he spoke. "A place for people who have turned their backs on God." His words hung heavy in the air, souring the warmth of the breakfast table in an instant. Talia's expression tightened, her discomfort obvious as she glanced quickly at Noah, as if trying to soften something that shouldn't have been said like that at all. Tate's scowl deepened, his fists clenching under the table. "Go fuck yourself, Dad," he shot back, voice sharp and venomous, each word like a strike. I sat there in shock, my fork hovering halfway to my mouth as the words hung in the air. Tate had just told his father to go fuck himself. For a second, everything felt frozen. I didn't know where to look, at Tate, at his father, at my plate. My instinct was to say something, anything, to diffuse it, but the words never came. This wasn't my place, it didn't feel like my place, so I stayed quiet. Across the table, Terrence's expression shifted, not into anger as I expected, but into something heavier. He exhaled slowly, an exasperated sigh that seemed to carry more disappointment than rage. His shoulders dropped just slightly as the fight had already drained out of him. Tate had never talked to Terrence like that before today. Uncle Joey maybe, that kind of clash I could imagine, but not this, not his father. I braced myself, half expecting the sound of a hand hitting the table, or worse, Tate being told to get out, to leave, or not come back until he learned some respect. But none of that happened. Terrence just shook his head, looking down at his plate for a moment before glancing back up at Tate, his expression tired, almost defeated. I don't know what I did, he muttered more to himself than to anyone else, to deserve a son who acts like an infant. The words landed harder than shouting would have, and somehow that silence that followed felt even worse. Terence leaned closer, voice tired and annoyed. Do you even hear yourself? You're acting like a child, obsessed and selfish. You can't just... I don't care what you think. Tate cut in louder now, his voice cracking through the tension like something breaking loose. He was almost shouting, the restraint he usually carried completely gone. I'm tired of it, tired of the looks, the comments, the constant judgment like you get to decide everything for me. He pushed his chair back slightly, the legs scraping against the floor, his chest rising and falling faster now. I do what I want. You don't get a say in what I do anymore. His eyes burned with intensity as he locked onto his father, every word landing harder than the last. Noah stays with me, that's not up for discussion, that's final. There was a beat, but Tate didn't stop. He leaned forward, voice dropping just enough to make it more dangerous, more certain. And if Noah goes, I go, simple as that. The room felt like it tightened around those words, as even the air had gone still. Tate's jaw clenched, but he kept going, pushing it further, making sure there was no misunderstanding left. And then we'll have a problem, you and me, a real one. His stare didn't waver, not even for a second. And you don't want that to happen. I shifted uncomfortably, caught between them, my stomach twisting. Tate, calm down, I said softly, trying to intervene, please. Tate's glare snapped toward me. I'm calm, he hissed. I just won't let him say stuff like that about me. Terence shook his head, leaning back, his voice still cutting but quieter now. You're impossible, Tate, you're obsessed, you can't see past your own wants and it's pathetic. Noah isn't a toy and you need to grow up. Tate's hands trembled on the table, jaw tight, but he didn't respond. I could see the storm raging behind his eyes, the clash of anger, shame, and defiance, and I sighed softly, wishing for a way to make either of them stop before things got worse. Talia reached over, placing a hand lightly on Tate's arm. Tate, breathe, she said gently, trying to soothe the tension. Let's not start the morning with a fight. Noah isn't going anywhere, you'll see. Terence's expression hardened, the last trace of patience draining from his face as something colder took its place. He leaned back slightly, studying Tate like he'd seen this before, like he already knew exactly which lever to pull. Keep this up, Terence said, his voice low and deliberate, and I'll call Joey. The name landed with weight. He'll fly in from Arizona, he continued, unblinking, take you on a car ride and beat your ass. Don't make me pick up that phone, Tate, I will. Joey will straighten you out, you'll learn the only way you ever do. For a split second, the room felt suffocating. Then Tate moved. His chair scraped harshly against the floor as he stood up so abruptly that it nearly tipped back. His breathing was uneven now, something raw and volatile rising to the surface, past anger into something reckless. Before anyone could react, Tate leaned forward and spat. It struck Terence across the face. The sound was small, but it echoed as if something much louder had been played. Tate didn't say a word. He just stood there, chest heaving, eyes blazing with a mix of fury and something deeper, something that had been pushed too far. Tate's eyes flicked between her and Terence, scowling, but the edge of his anger softened just slightly, though the tension in the room was still thick enough to taste. Trying to steer the conversation away from the argument between Terence and Tate, Noah cleared his throat. Maya's coming over later, around 3, he said. Is it okay if I give her something to eat while she's here? Talia smiled warmly. Of course, dear, I always like it when you bring your friends home. A teasing grin spread across her face. Now tell me, is Maya just a platonic friend or could she be the future Mrs. Noah Lunas? Tate reacted immediately. The thought of Noah spending the afternoon with a girl unsettled him. In his mind, girlfriends had a way of pulling people apart, and he couldn't stand the idea of anyone coming between him and Noah. Actually, Tate said with a smug smile, Noah already has plans with me later today. Maya will have to come over another day. Noah frowned and shook his head. We don't have plans, he interjected. You're just jealous because Maya is important to me. Tate opened his mouth to argue, but Noah cut him off. We haven't had plans for 3 days, Noah said. Don't tell fibs, Tate. I wanted to take you on a long drive, Tate said, his voice softening as he looked at Noah. It was supposed to be a surprise. I didn't tell you because I wanted to see the look on your face when I showed up. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. I just got new hubcaps for my car and I had luxury leather seats installed. I thought you'd like them since we're always driving somewhere together. He shrugged casually. I was planning for us to take the scenic route to Beverly Hills, stop somewhere nice for dinner, walk around for a while and then go see a musical theater show. I figured we'd make a whole day of it before heading home. He looked at Noah expectantly. I thought you'd enjoy spending the day with me, that's why I didn't want to tell you beforehand, I wanted it to be a surprise. Noah nodded thoughtfully. Since I haven't told Maya I was planning to invite her over yet, I'll talk to her tomorrow instead. He gave Tate a small shrug. I guess we could go see a musical theater show, we haven't done that in a while. A faint smile crossed his face. It might be fun. Tate's expression softened and a genuine smile spread across his face. The tension he'd been carrying melted away almost instantly. Really? He asked, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. Noah nodded once more. Yeah, it sounds nice. Tate's smile widened, pleased that, at least for one more afternoon, he would have Noah all to himself. Noah looked across the table at Talia. Could Maya come over one night, stay over and sleep in the spare room with me? Talia smiled warmly. I think that would be lovely, dear, as long as you promise to be safe and be a good host. Noah tilted his head. Safe. I mean, Talia explained gently, if your relationship ever becomes romantic or sexual, I expect you to take precautions. You're old enough to make your own decisions, but you're also old enough to live with the consequences of those decisions. Noah gave a small nod. I understand. Talia's expression shifted as she turned to her other son. And Tate. He looked up from his breakfast. You're going to be a good host too. I don't want you glaring at Maya all evening. The last time she came over, I was not pleased with your behavior. Tate's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Anyone who walks through our front door deserves to be welcomed and treated with respect and courtesy, especially when they've done nothing wrong. She held his gaze. If Maya is Noah's girlfriend, you'll respect that. If you can't, then you'll have to find somewhere else to live. Tate scowled, saying nothing as he stared down at his plate. The weather is supposed to be nice on Saturday evening, Talia said with a smile. Why don't you invite Maya over then, and if Saturday doesn't work for her, Friday would be fine too. Noah smiled back. I think Saturday would be better. Her parents usually go out on Friday nights, so Saturday will probably be easier. Great, Talia replied enthusiastically. I'll make sure we have plenty of snacks delivered along with our usual catered dinner. She paused, thinking ahead. Does Maya have any food allergies or foods she doesn't like? Noah thought for a moment before answering. She likes pizza, ice cream, celebratory food, he laughed softly. As far as I know, she doesn't have any allergies. Okay, Talia said with a nod. I'll make sure we have a few of her favorites. After another moment, she asked, will she need any extra blankets, pillows, or nighttime clothes? I'm happy to provide anything she might need. Noah shook his head. No, she'll bring all of her own things. Perfect, Talia said with a satisfied smile. Then all she has to do is show up and enjoy herself. I want her to feel welcome in our home. Tate shot Noah a glare from across the table. So, he said with a sly smirk, won't she be lonely sleeping all by herself in the spare room? Noah smiled knowingly. Of course not, he replied. I'll be sleeping with her. Tate's smirk disappeared. You'll have to spend the night by yourself, Noah added with a teasing grin, but you'll be fine. The thought did not sit well with Tate. His jaw tightened and he looked away without saying another word. After a few moments, Noah pushed his chair back. I'm done with breakfast. He gathered several plates, glasses, and pieces of cutlery before carrying them into the kitchen. After setting everything carefully in the sink, he rinsed a few dishes before returning to the dining room. Talia watched him with an affectionate smile. Isn't he such a good young man, she said proudly. Terence lowered his newspaper just enough to glance at Noah. He certainly has good manners, he replied before lifting the newspaper again. A few minutes later, Noah headed upstairs to get ready for the shopping trip they had planned. Without saying a word, Tate rose from his chair and quietly followed him up the stairs. As soon as Noah slipped upstairs after the meal, Tate was right behind me, his footsteps heavy and fast. His eyes were wide, chest heaving, and I could feel the tension radiating off him like heat. You're letting Maya replace me, he accused, his voice sharp, almost trembling with panic and anger. She can't, no one can, she's not me, I'm the one you stay with, I'm the one. Tate, calm down, I said, holding up my hands, trying to keep my voice steady despite the knot of fear twisting in my chest. Maya isn't replacing you, she's just coming over for a few hours, that's all. Hours? He hissed, stepping closer, eyes darting around the hallway as if the very walls were betraying him. You can't just let her. I'm supposed to be the only one, you don't get it, Noah, you can't let anyone else take my place. Who said you could bring strangers into my house without my permission? I shook my head, backing toward my bedroom door. Tate, listen, you're not being replaced, I'm not. I'm not choosing anyone over you, I just need a little space. Space? His laugh was sharp, hollow, almost manic. I don't want space, I don't want anyone else, I want you, only you. I flinched as he got closer, but I tried to keep my tone firm. Then you have me, Tate, but you can't act like she's trying to take me away, that's not fair. Tate froze for a moment, chest heaving, eyes wild. Then he stepped back, jaw tight, muttering under his breath, I just can't. I can't lose you, Noah. I swallowed, the weight of his obsession pressing down on me, knowing that even my small attempts at boundaries would always come up against the wall of his desperation. Tate's glare snapped toward me. I'm calm, he hissed. I just won't let him say stuff like that about me. She gets your room, your door closed, your body next to hers. His laugh was short and ugly. Funny how fast that happened. I turned slowly. Don't do this. Why not? He shot back. It's already done, she gets what I don't. She gets you when you're asleep, when you're not thinking, when you're not guarding yourself. That's not fair, I said, and you know it. Isn't it? He stepped closer, eyes bright with something dangerously close to tears. I spent my whole life waking up next to you, knowing where you were, breathing and being safe, and now I'm supposed to be okay with the fact that someone else gets that without earning it. That's not how this works, I said quietly. You don't earn access to me. He flinched as I struck him. She didn't earn it, he went on anyway, voice cracking now. She just showed up, she smiled, and suddenly she's in your bed and I'm the one locked out like I did something wrong. I swallowed hard. Tate, this isn't about a bed. It is to me, he said immediately. That bed was the last place I knew I still belonged. The words landed heavier than his anger. You didn't even look at me during the meal, he continued. Not once the way you used to, every laugh. Every touch, it was all hers when she was here, like I was already erased. You're not erased, I said, but you can't keep acting like we're still 10 years old. I don't want to be 10, he snapped. I just don't want to be nothing. Silence stretched between us again, thick with everything we couldn't undo. She gets to fall asleep with you, he said finally, voice low, bitter, and I get to lie awake knowing I've been replaced. That's not true, I said, but even as I spoke I knew it wouldn't reach him. He shook his head slowly. You don't even hear how permanent it sounds when you say her name. Beside me, Tate breathed evenly, the steady rhythm of it grounding and infuriating all at once. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see him. His face was soft in sleep, younger, somehow unguarded. There was the faintest curve at the corner of his mouth, almost a smile, like he was resting inside a certainty I no longer had access to. It felt unfair how peaceful he looked while I lay there unraveling. A wave of tenderness washed over me so suddenly that it hurt. This was the face I had memorized over years and years. Late nights, shared silences, inside jokes whispered into the dark. I knew the shape of his calm better than my own. My chest tightened with the urge to reach out, to smooth his hair back the way I used to exist in that easy closeness where nothing needed to be explained. And then resentment followed right on its heels. Noah was done completely, finally done with Tate's overprotectiveness, the constant hovering, the way Tate acted like he had a say in every corner of his life. I know you care about me, Noah said quietly, meeting Tate's eyes. But I've grown up, I'm 18 now and we need to move on from sleeping together and, honestly, from how protective you are of me, especially how overprotective you've become. Tate's expression fell, but Noah continued before he could interrupt. I'm going to be moving out soon. I still have that house-sitting job to take care of and I think it'll be good for me to have my own place. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I think it'll be best if we live in separate houses. It'll give you a chance to grow up too and learn that you don't have to be with me every second of every day. Noah offered him a small, reassuring smile. That doesn't mean I'm disappearing. We'll still see each other at family dinners, birthdays, holidays, and other events. We can still spend time together. His smile softened. I'll always care about you, Tate. I just think it's time for us to have our own lives instead of living the same one. Tate scoffed like it was ridiculous. Didn't you say that a few days ago you weren't even going to tell me? He shot back. That's right, Noah snapped, because you don't listen. Tate's expression didn't soften, if anything, it hardened. Good thing I handled it then, he said coldly. I moved all your stuff into my room before breakfast. You're staying with me. For a second, Noah just stared at him, like he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. Then something in him broke. You what? Noah exploded. You can't just move my stuff without asking, you asshole. The word hit Tate like a slap. His face flickered, stunned for a split second before pride rushed in to cover it. I can touch your stuff, Tate shot back defensively. I've been tripping over it for 15 years. I always treat your things with respect, Noah. That doesn't give you the right, Noah cut him off, glaring at him like he'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. You don't get it, you don't get it at all. I know you care about me, Noah said quietly, meeting Tate's eyes. But I've grown up, I'm 18 now, and we need to move on from sleeping together and, honestly, from how protective you are of me, especially how overprotective you've become. Tate's expression fell, but Noah continued before he could interrupt. I'm going to be moving out soon. I still have that house-sitting job to take care of, and I think it'll be good for me to have my own place. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I think it'll be best if we live in separate houses. It'll give you a chance to grow up, too, and learn that you don't have to be with me every second of every day. Noah offered him a small, reassuring smile. That doesn't mean I'm disappearing. We'll still see each other at family dinners, birthdays, holidays, and other events. We can still spend time together. His smile softened. I'll always care about you, Tate. I just think it's time for us to have our own lives instead of living the same one. No, you don't get it? Tate's voice sharpened as he took a step closer. I'm not going to sleep alone in a cold, lonely bed while you're off in some penthouse or duplex. His jaw clenched and frustration bled into his words. I've gotten used to sleeping beside you. I've gotten used to waking up with you there. I'm not just going to give that up and pretend it doesn't matter. He closed the distance between them, his eyes locked on Noah's. I'm not going to put up with it, he snapped. You can't expect me to lie there every night by myself while you're building a new life somewhere else. His breathing grew heavier. I don't want a different routine, Noah. I want the one we've always had. Noah's patience finally snapped. He had reached his limit with Tate's possessiveness. No, he shouted, his voice echoing through the hallway. You don't get to decide where I live, who I spend time with, or who I sleep beside. He took a step toward Tate, anger flashing across his face. I'm 18 years old, Tate. I'm allowed to have my own life. I'm allowed to have friends, a girlfriend, and my own home if that's what I want. His chest rose and fell with each breath. I'm tired of you acting as if I belong to you. I don't. Noah shook his head in disbelief. You keep trying to make me feel guilty every time I do something that doesn't include you. That's not love, it's possessiveness. His voice remained firm, though it trembled with emotion. You have to let me grow up. Whether you like it or not, I'm moving out and you're going to have to learn how to sleep in your own bed without me. I want space from you. Space? Your mom was right, you're like Pepe Le Pew. I just want to be left alone and you don't get it, just leave me alone. No, Tate shouted back immediately, louder, desperate, like the word had been ripped out of him. You don't get to say that, you don't get to just walk away like I don't matter. Your purpose, Tate started, but Noah cut him off again, harsher this time. Fuck my purpose, fuck your rules, and fuck you, Tate. Noah turned sharply, trying to push past him into the hallway, but Tate grabbed him before he could get away, fingers locking tight around his arm. I'm the one in charge of this relationship, Tate snapped, his voice low and dangerous now, barely controlled. I tell you when you go, I'll tell you when we're through. I'm not through, so you're staying. No, Noah said, pulling against his grip, his voice shaking but unyielding. No, you don't get to decide that. Tate's jaw tightened, something volatile flashing in his eyes. You think I don't see it? Tate went on, his anger spilling over now, years of it. I know what you are, Noah. You pull people in, you make them feel like they're everything, and then you drop them, you disappear, you don't even say anything, you just vanish like they never mattered. Noah was in the mood to argue with Tate anymore. Tate's voice tore through the hallway, loud enough to echo off the walls. You use people? He shouted, the words sharp, almost frantic. You let them get used to you, get comfortable with you, and then you just leave. What is that, huh? Is it a game? Do you do it on purpose? His voice cracked with the force of it. Because it's driving me crazy, Noah. Noah stopped, his back still turned, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles ached. Every muscle in his body screamed to turn around, to swing, to shut Tate up, but he forced himself to stay still, breathing hard, fighting it down. You're insufferable, Noah said finally, his voice low but cutting. You didn't used to be like this, you've gotten controlling, obsessive, you call it caring, but it's not, it's suffocating. Tate let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh, but there was no humor in it. Oh, I've changed, he shot back. That's rich coming from you, you're the one who's gotten independent, rebellious, like you suddenly don't need anyone, like you don't need me. Noah shut his eyes for a second, jaw tightening. I won't stand for it, Tate shouted again, stomping his foot like a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum, as though raising his voice alone could force everything back to the way it used to be. He took another step toward Noah. Crowding his space without actually touching him, his chest heaved with every breath, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. Frustration, fear, and desperation all spilled into his expression as he glared at Noah. You can't just leave, he said, his voice cracking despite his anger. You can't expect me to wake up one day and act like this is normal. It's not. I won't accept it. Noah shook his head. I have options, I have choices. I'm 18, Tate. I deserve to decide what I want to do with my own life. His voice was firm but controlled. If I want to sleep next to a girl, I have that right. And if you want to sleep next to someone someday, you have every right to do that too, as long as the other person wants that. He held Tate's gaze, refusing to back down. I've started moving forward with my life, you need to move forward with yours too. Noah took a slow breath. You can't keep expecting me to live the way we always have. We're not children anymore. It's time for both of us to let go of what used to be and figure out who we are as adults. Then his tone shifted, mocking cold. Oh, you want to exercise your choices, Tate sneered. You want to prove how grown up you are. There was a beat, heavy, final. Then get the fuck out. The words hit hard in the narrow space, hanging there like a line drawn in concrete. After Tate told him to get the fuck out for daring to exercise his own choices, as though Tate's wishes no longer factored into the decision, Noah stood frozen. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came. He had never expected his oldest companion to react with such raw anger. Tate stepped forward and gave Noah a firm shove, forcing him back a step. His face was flushed with fury, his breathing uneven. He couldn't understand it. In Tate's mind, they had always shared everything, the same home, the same routines, even the same bed. He couldn't comprehend why Noah would willingly trade that familiarity for an uncertain future with someone else. To Tate, he was offering comfort, security, and a life of luxury. Why would Noah choose to walk away from that? The thought burned at him, feeding his anger even as it masked the fear underneath, that Noah was no longer choosing him. Noah shook his head. Instead of arguing, he turned away from Tate and walked downstairs without another word. Tate stared after him, his mouth falling open in surprise. He had expected Noah to shout back, to defend himself, to keep fighting until one of them won. Instead, Noah had simply stopped. The silence felt worse than any argument. Tate remained in the hallway for a long moment, listening to Noah's footsteps fade below him. For the first time, it occurred to him that Noah might not be walking away from the conversation, he might be walking away from the constant conflict itself. 2 days passed with an uneasy distance hanging over the house. Then Saturday night arrived. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the mansion washed in warm amber light. Talia was in the kitchen directing the caterers, Terence sat in the den with his newspaper, and Tate lingered upstairs, restless and unable to settle. At exactly 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. A moment later came a gentle knock on the front door. Noah looked up from the living room, and despite the tension that had filled the house all week, a genuine smile spread across his face. "That's Maya," he said quietly as he headed for the foyer, leaving Tate scowling by the TV in the living room. Once Maya arrived for dinner, Tate's mood darkened the second he saw her. He wanted Noah to have friends, he really did, but he didn't want anyone who could steal even a fraction of Noah's attention away from him. Tate had always been the center of Noah's world, and sharing that was like asking him to tear a piece of himself away. He wasn't possessive in the obvious sense, not like people imagined, he was just comfortable in his routines. And any disruption, any ripple in that carefully structured life terrified him, really terrified him. Dinner started and Maya sat across from Noah, chatting politely. Tate glared at her like she was some unwelcome insect invading his pristine, perfect kitchen. Noah nudged him under the table. "Stop scowling or your face will stay like that," Noah whispered. He stopped but didn't smile, didn't look at anyone, just fixed his gaze on his plate, not touching a single bite. Maya kept talking, undeterred, telling us about some social function she'd been managing, raising money for the cancer wing in pediatrics. Terrence acted like he was interested, but really he hadn't set foot in a hospital in years, let alone tried to raise money for kids. Maya glanced at Noah and tried to make small talk, but the tension in the room was palpable, almost suffocating. She looked at Tate, sensing the rigid, territorial energy radiating off him. Any girl with half a brain would have known to tread carefully, but Maya didn't flinch. "Why don't you tell me about yourself?" she asked. Tate froze as she'd insulted him, his eyes snapped up, sharp and incredulous. "Noah hasn't told you about me?" he demanded, his voice heavy, like she'd crossed an unspoken boundary, like her ignorance was an egregious trespass. "No," Maya said, gentle but firm. "I asked if you had any friends and he said you'd known someone since childhood, but he didn't want to tell me anything until I got here." After Maya casually mentioned that Noah had never really talked about Tate, something inside Tate sank. He felt blindsided. To Tate, it wasn't just an offhand comment, it felt like a betrayal. If Noah had never mentioned him to his own girlfriend, then maybe he wasn't as important in Noah's life as he had always believed. The realization stung far more than he wanted to admit. His eyes drifted to Noah, hardening into a glare. Noah noticed immediately. He met Tate's gaze for only a moment before looking away again, letting the glare roll off his back like water off a duck's feathers. He wasn't interested in reigniting another argument, especially not in front of Maya. That indifference only made Tate's resentment grow. Tate's hand tightened around his knife, and it clattered against the expensive plate with a jarring, deliberate sound. Then he launched into stories, things intimate, deeply personal but strictly platonic, memories and events Maya couldn't relate to, moments only someone who had been there could understand. The conversation wasn't really for her, it was a performance, a petty attempt to protect his place, a marking of territory. Tate was claiming his space, signaling that any intruder, even a polite, well-meaning one, was trespassing. "You know," Tate said, leaning slightly forward, voice low, "I fixed the engine on Noah's first car at midnight. It was freezing. He didn't thank me, not that I needed him to, but it mattered, you know, things like that stick with me." Maya nodded politely, trying to keep pace, but she looked unsure where to fit herself in. Tate continued, oblivious to her discomfort. "And there was the time we camped in the Arizona desert. I built the fire alone because Noah was scared that he'd burn himself. He slept the whole night against my body, keeping me warm, completely oblivious to the desert critters crawling by our campfire. Some people would have left, some people wouldn't have stayed, but I stayed, because it mattered to him. That's kind of the point." Maya tried to respond, but her words stumbled under the weight of his intensity. "That sounds amazing," she said, voice tentative. "Yes," Tate said sharply, "it was, and yet no one else cared. Most people don't. They don't see the effort it takes to make someone happy. They don't see the loyalty required to sustain a mutually beneficial relationship. But I do, that's why I know who matters." The tension ratcheted higher when he shifted in his chair. "You understand that, right? You understand how it feels when someone doesn't notice the little things you do, the things that count, because it's not something everyone gets," Tate pushed. Maya swallowed, realizing she was both spectator and participant in something intensely private and territorial. I think I understand," she said cautiously. It's just." "Just what?" Tate cut in, eyes narrowing. "Just that you're here, that you've taken Noah's attention for even a moment. That's exactly it. That's why this is awkward, that's why this feels tense. You're not supposed to be part of this yet, you're intruding." By the time dinner ended, Maya and Noah went upstairs, leaving Tate alone at the table. His chest felt tight, his blood pressure high, his body buzzing with anger, jealousy, and a sense of exclusion he had never wanted to feel. Being left out, truly invisible in the presence of others, was a feeling Tate could hardly bear, and even though he had monopolized the conversation, had forced it into his terms. The absence of Noah's undivided attention afterward made the quiet feel heavier than any words could. Tate stormed upstairs, intent on confronting Noah and Maya, but the door slammed shut and locked in his face, nearly catching him on the nose. He froze, momentarily stunned before his old tricks, those little manipulations and schemes he had always used to his advantage, kicked in. He tried the doorknob, jiggling it, twisting it, but it didn't budge. Tate pulled at it again and again, at least 10 times, each attempt more frustrated than the last, until finally he slumped to the floor in defeat. Arms crossed, forehead resting on the cool carpet, he let out a long, quiet sigh. He'd wait. Noah could take care of whatever he needed to do. Tate had patience when it suited him, and this was just another test of his endurance. Then he heard it, giggling, his head snapped up. Curiosity, that insatiable edge of jealousy and obsession, drove him forward. He leaned toward the door and squinted through the keyhole, heart hammering with a mix of dread and anticipation. What he saw through the keyhole made his stomach twist. Maya was sitting on Noah's lap on the bed, leaning close, their faces inches apart. It looked like they were kissing. Tate froze, a surge of conflicting emotions crashing over him, the familiar heat of jealousy, the anger of intrusion, but also that odd, protective sense he always had for Noah. And yet, he didn't move, didn't make a sound. Noah had always been allowed these little interactions with others as long as they left and didn't disrupt their routine. Tate couldn't care less about a brief moment of closeness with a girl, he could handle that. But the suspense, the not knowing, the waiting outside the locked door was killing him. He stayed there, pressed to the floor, watching through the keyhole, every second stretching endlessly as he tried to reconcile the mix of fury, longing, and helplessness twisting through him. Tate went back to his room, settling onto his bed with a tight jaw, waiting for the spare room door to open. An hour or so later he heard movement, Noah leading Maya down the hall toward the bathroom before Tate made his way to the spare room. He paused, listening, letting the sounds drift past him, his mind buzzing with impatience and that familiar spike of jealousy he never fully admitted. A few minutes later, Tate's gaze fell on his own room again and froze. Noah was sitting on Tate's bed, Maya perched on his lap. His chest tightened, a strange mix of irritation and disbelief washing over him. Noah in Tate's own bed with a girl. The scene was ironic. Tate had done the same with Emily, sex in someone else's bed, a crowded house, other rooms taken, but he hadn't thought twice. It had been practical, not symbolic. All the other beds were claimed because of Noah's birthday party, so their shared bedroom became the only option. Talia had moved most of the stuff from the house into the various rooms upstairs, leaving very little free space. Tate could understand that necessity, but seeing Noah intimate with someone in their bed, that felt different, insensitive even. It wasn't about morality, it was about territory, routine, the unspoken rules Tate always lived by. Tate hadn't invited Emily to Noah's party with any intention of sleeping with her. She was new in town, and he had simply thought inviting her would be a welcoming gesture. They had slept together once before in the library bathroom, and afterward Tate had no real desire to repeat the experience. Everything changed, however, when he discovered that Noah had lied to him. Tate had believed Noah's story about Tiffany and the gift he had given his oldest companion. Now he learned that Noah had lied about losing his virginity. Noah had looked him straight in the eye and deceived him, something Tate never imagined he would do. The revelation left him hurt, angry, and deeply unsettled. In a moment of resentment and wounded pride, Tate sought Emily out again. It wasn't because he suddenly wanted her. It was because his emotions were in turmoil after what he saw as Noah's betrayal. He hadn't intended for Noah to find out, but if word eventually reached him, Tate told himself it was Noah's own fault for lying in the first place. What struck Tate as rather odd was that Noah never seemed to react to any of it. Noah hadn't apologized until recently. It was almost as if Noah had never known Tate had been upstairs with Emily during the party. Unfortunately, Tate failed to realize that Emily had become the catalyst for his relationship with Noah unraveling. Because he never understood the depth of Noah's romantic feelings for him, it never occurred to him that sleeping with Emily could have devastated Noah. As far as Tate was concerned, there was no reason to connect the dots. Tate believed that Noah's attachment to him had shifted, that something fundamental in their dynamic had been dulled by Maya entering the picture. In his mind, Maya wasn't just Noah's girlfriend, she was the reason Noah's attention had thinned, the reason their once constant connection now felt fractured and uneven. Tate hated it. He noticed every small change, the slower replies, the divided focus, the way Noah no longer seemed fully present with him the way he used to be. Where there had once been a steady, familiar intensity between them, there was now something diluted, something split. To Tate, it felt like he was receiving less than half of Noah's attention compared to before, and he couldn't understand why that change felt so unbearable. It looked like Noah was getting to second base with Maya, and honestly Tate had no real reason to complain. After all, he had been through the entire Los Angeles region of women himself, but watching it now in his space with his routines disrupted stirred something sharper than mere jealousy. It wasn't about control, it was about recognition, about the fact that some things he considered untouchable were being touched anyway. Tate was turning to go back downstairs when he froze, catching snippets of a conversation he wasn't meant to hear. Maya's voice floated down the hallway, casual and curious. "Is Tate somebody important because he seems to think you're his world?" Noah laughed, but there was something brittle in it. "It's all right, I mean, he's a bit much. Honestly, I like his mom more than I like him." Tate's jaw clenched, pressing against the wall as his heart thudded painfully. Noah continued, crueler now, as if testing a limit. "He's always been bossy and controlling. Honestly, I don't even like him anymore. He's suffocating, obsessive, always hovering. I've been tolerating him for years, but I'm done. He acts like everything I do is about him, like I owe him my attention, my time, my everything, and I just don't care about him the way he thinks I do." Tate felt like the air had been ripped out of him. He had always believed Noah loved him truly, completely, but these words made it clear it had been toleration all along. He was just convenient, a place to stay, a way to keep his mom nearby until September. Noah went on, voice colder, sharper. "I'm just going to stay here until I go to college and then I'll never see him again. Tate can do what he does and I'll do what I do. If I never see him again, honestly, it'll be too soon." Tate's fists clenched so tight it hurt, his nails digging into his palms. He wanted to storm into the room, grab Noah, shake him, scream at him, but instead he forced himself to turn and shuffle back downstairs, each step heavier than the last. By the time he reached the bottom of the stairs, the dam broke. His vision blurred with tears he couldn't hold back, and he sank to the floor, body trembling. The weight of betrayal pressed down on him, sharper than anything he'd felt before. He had loved Noah, believed in him, trusted him, and now it seemed Noah hadn't cared at all. Tate let himself cry, the sobs quiet at first, then shaking, raw and endless, mourning the person he thought Noah had been, and the cruel reality of the person he really was. Maya had gone home around 9 in the morning. Noah brushed his teeth, changed, and slipped into the spare room, happy to finally be alone for a few hours before lunch. He locked the door behind him and let out a long sigh of relief, but it evaporated the moment he turned around. There, plopped squarely in the middle of the spare bed, sat Tate, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes sharp. Tate's glare cut into him immediately. "When were you going to tell me?" he demanded, voice low, accusatory, like every word was a blade. Noah froze for a second, caught off guard. "Tell you what?" he said, keeping his voice light, feigning innocence. Tate cringed at the act. "Don't pull that sweet virgin routine," he hissed, stepping closer. "You can't bullshit a bullshitter." Noah's shoulders stiffened. "What do you want?" he asked, voice rising in irritation. "I want to lie down, I have an awful migraine." "Nobody's stopping you," Tate sneered, but the words were sharp, dripping with barely contained jealousy. "You're sitting on my bed where I usually masturbate about pretty girls until you come in, hopping to lie on top of me." Noah smirked, trying to rile Tate. That was the last straw. Tate lunged off the bed with the force of a hurricane, shoving Noah to the floor. The carpet met Noah with a thud as Tate straddled him, pinning him down, hands pressing into his shoulders, chest heaving. "How long have you been lying to me, twat?" Tate growled, face close to Noah's, eyes dark with fury. "Get off me," Noah shouted, struggling beneath him, arms flailing. "You're suffocating me." "Funny choice of words," Tate hissed back, his tone thick with anger. Every movement was fueled by jealousy, hurt, and rage as he pressed his weight down, refusing to let Noah slip away. "I heard what you said to Maya, you're a backstabbing little cunt," Tate yelled, spittle flying from his mouth, splattering across Noah's face. Noah wriggled desperately beneath him, twisting and pushing, trying to make space, trying to breathe, trying to calm the storm of Tate's jealousy. Tate, stop, I'm not. Tate, please, you're hurting me. No, Tate roared, leaning closer, shaking with possessiveness and fury. You think you can just laugh and smile and lie right to my face, pretend it doesn't matter, pretend it's all fine? It matters, Noah, you matter, and I can't. I won't let anyone take you away. Noah struggled harder, rolling his shoulders, trying to shove Tate off without hurting him. I'm not doing anything, I'm not lying, please Tate, move, let me up. But Tate's jealousy and rage refused to let him relent. Every spittle-flecked word, every shove, every accusation came from a place of fear, fear that he was losing Noah, that Noah's attention, affection, and loyalty could slip away in a single careless moment. Noah continued to wriggle, arms flailing, gasping for air, trying to pull Tate off while Tate pressed down, rocking with anger, every muscle taut. His face was wet with tears, frustration, and spittle. Tate's jealousy, hurt, and possessiveness burned hotter than ever, and even as Noah struggled to escape, Tate's weight and fury pinned him, a desperate assertion that he wouldn't let go, not now, not ever. Tate's blood boiled as his face was a meter away from Noah's cheek in the spare room, heart hammering, fists clenched. The words Noah had said to Maya, degrading, dehumanizing, cutting, burned in his mind like acid. Every syllable, every tone felt like a betrayal he could hardly comprehend. Do you really feel like that? Tate spat, stepping close, face inches from Noah's cheek, eyes blazing with fury and disbelief. The awful things you said to her, tell me you meant that. Noah, leaning back on the bed and trying to stay calm, let out a short, incredulous laugh. I knew you were eavesdropping, Tate, he said, voice teasing but edged with tension. You're a peeping Tom, you're a guy who can't even let me have 5 seconds to myself without hiding somewhere, listening, sneaking around. I heard your footsteps, I could hear your breathing, every little sound you made. Tate froze, shock mingling with the rage that already consumed him. You knew I was listening, his voice cracked, part anger, part disbelief. Yeah, Noah admitted while laughing, his tone softening but still firm. I knew, and now you know what it feels like. He leaned closer, matching Tate's intensity. To hear someone you care about, someone you trust, someone important to you, say awful things about you, say things with no respect, things that dehumanize you. Tate's chest heaved, heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. He had always assumed Noah's words, his laughter, teasing, the casual comments about Tate's flaws were benign, playful, but this was something else entirely. Noah, those girls, those things you said, Tate's voice faltered, thick with anger, you, to Maya. It's just how you told lies to Madison and the other cheerleaders and jocks about me. I only said it because you were listening, Noah cut in, startling Tate into silence. I wanted you to hear it. Tate froze, his fists trembling. You did this on purpose. Noah nodded slowly, eyes locking with Tate's. Yes, but not to hurt you, not to humiliate you. I wanted you to understand, Tate. I wanted you to feel just for a second what it's like to hear someone you love, someone you trust, say awful lies about you. I wanted you to understand how it feels to be that exposed, that small, that invisible, even to someone you sleep next to every night. Tate's breath caught, his fury wavered, replaced by a staggering mix of shock, betrayal, and a reluctant flicker of comprehension. He had been ready to explode, to lash out, but now he saw the cruel, twisted intention behind Noah's words. They hadn't been careless. They hadn't been casual gossip. Noah had orchestrated it purposefully, carefully, so that Tate could feel the pain he had imagined, the fear, the humiliation, the jealousy. Tate's body shook, every muscle taut. You meant it as a lesson, he whispered, voice cracking with disbelief. Noah's gaze was steady, almost apologetic, but unflinching. Not a lesson in obedience, not a punishment, a lesson in understanding. You feel everything so deeply, Tate. I thought, maybe if you felt this, just this small piece, you'd understand me better. Why I do what I do, why I hold back sometimes, why I try to manage my words, my actions around you. Tate's chest heaved, eyes wide, struggling to process. The anger was still there, sharp and hot, but now tangled with a strange, painful realization. Noah hadn't intended cruelty for cruelty's sake, he had intended awareness. And yet the weight of what Tate had heard, of what Noah had said, of what he had felt, it left him trembling, raw, shocked, and more exposed than he had ever been in his life. The room was silent except for their ragged breathing. Tate's hands hung at his sides, trembling, and he finally whispered, barely audible, I don't know what to say. Noah's lips pressed into a thin line, a mix of guilt, defiance, and concern. You don't have to say anything, I just wanted you to understand. Tate's knees nearly buckled as he sank onto the edge of the bed trying to steady himself. Shock, fury, and revelation twisted inside him. He realized, finally, how much power Noah had over his emotions, how deeply he had invested himself in this boy, and how terrifying it was to see that trust, even manipulated, tested, and bent in such a deliberate, calculated way. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was heartbreak, it was awe, it was fear. And above all, it was the undeniable truth that Noah could cut him open and leave him raw, and somehow, painfully, it was still all part of loving him. Noah smirked, leaning back just enough to look casual, though the sharp glint in his eyes gave away the amusement behind it. "I still like your mom, Tate," he said, voice teasing but deliberate. Tate's face twisted, livid, his jaw clenching so hard it ached. Rage coiled in his chest like a live wire, every muscle in his body taut, ready to explode. "Now you know how I felt," Noah smiled. Tate growled, taking a step closer, chest heaving, eyes blazing with fury. Noah's smirk widened, unshaken. "Clearly," Tate said, his tone flat, confident, cutting through the tension. "Next time you tell lies about me to people, let me know first or I will kick you in the balls." Noah wasn't joking. Tate froze, part shocked, part enraged, but Noah wasn't done. "Now get out so I can lie down," Noah said, voice firm, final. "Go, please." Noah wasn't smiling anymore. He wasn't joking. Noah wasn't putting up with Tate's crap, not tonight, not ever. The smirk faded, replaced with an ironclad line of self-possession that left Tate standing there, livid and shaking, powerless to do anything but seethe as Noah settled on the bed, claiming victory without lifting a finger. "You think that makes it okay?" Tate snapped, stepping closer. "You humiliate me just to prove a point." "You humiliate yourself?" Noah fired back. "You act like a control freak, like I'm some project you manage. It's embarrassing." Tate's eyes narrowed. "Embarrassing?" "Yeah," Noah said, voice rising. "Following me around, listening at doors like a creep. What do you want me to call it? Normal?" "Watch it," Tate warned, anger boiling over. "No, you watch it," Noah shouted. "I'm sick of your crap. You don't give me space, you don't respect me, you don't even treat me like a person half the time." "I treat you better than anyone," Tate snapped. "No, you don't," Noah yelled. "You treat me like I belong to you, like I don't get a say in anything." "Because you're trying to leave," Tate shot back instantly. "You've been pulling away for almost 2 months, don't act like I don't see it." "Oh my God," Noah scoffed loudly, throwing his hands up. "Not everything is some grand abandonment plot, Tate. Sometimes I just want space without you acting like the world is ending." "You are leaving?" Tate shouted, voice cracking with anger. "You said it, college gone, never see me again, what am I supposed to think?" "Not everything is a crisis, Tate. I want a life," Noah yelled back. "I don't want to be stuck in this weird, suffocating situation forever." "Weird," Tate repeated, incredulous. "That's what this is to you." "Yeah," Noah snapped. "It's not normal, Tate. None of this is normal." "Then why are you still here?" Tate demanded. "Because I don't have a choice half the time," Noah fired back. "You don't let me leave." "That's not true." "It is," Noah shouted. "You grab me, you block doors, you decide everything. What do you call that?" "I call it not letting you walk out on me," Tate snapped. "I'm not your responsibility," Noah yelled. "I'm not your property." "I never said you were." "You don't have to say it, you act like it," Noah shot back, stepping closer, shoving Tate hard in the chest. "You act as if I owe you my time, my attention, and my entire life." Tate staggered back half a step, then surged forward again, angrier. "At least I care, you just throw people away when you're done with them." "That's not what I'm doing," Noah shouted. "It is," Tate yelled back. "You pull people in, make them feel important, then the second something better comes along, you're gone." Noah laughed bitterly. "Wow, you really believe that, don't you, that I'm just waiting to replace you?" "Aren't you?" Tate shot back. "Maya, Mark, Joey, and other people, anyone who isn't me." "God, you're jealous of everyone," Noah snapped. "It's pathetic." "Pathetic," Tate repeated, stepping closer again. "You're the one lying behind my back like a coward." "I did it to prove a point," Noah yelled. "Well, congratulations," Tate shot back. "You proved you're an asshole." "At least I'm not a controlling freak," Noah snapped. "At least I'm not a two-faced." Tate stopped himself for half a second, then didn't. "Cunt who smiles to people's faces and lies the second they turn around." Noah's expression hardened instantly. you don't get to call me that. I just did, Tate said, voice cold. Noah shoved him again, harder this time. Say it again. Cunt, Tate repeated without hesitation. Noah's fists clenched. You're unbelievable. And you're fake, Tate shot back. You act like I'm the problem, but you're the one sneaking around, lying or setting me up like some kind of joke. I didn't set you up, Noah yelled. I wanted you to understand how it felt. Well, I get it, Tate shouted. It feels like betrayal, it feels like you don't give a damn about me. Noah hesitated for a split second, but it was enough. Tate saw it. Say it, Tate pushed, voice low and shaking. Go on, say you don't care. I didn't say that, Noah replied, but weaker now. You don't have to, Tate snapped. You already made it clear. Noah's frustration flared again. You twist everything, that's what you do. You take one thing and turn it into some dramatic end-of-the-world crap. Because it is a big deal, Tate shouted. You don't just get to say you don't like me and expect me to be fine with it. I said sometimes, Noah yelled back. Same difference, Tate snapped. No, it's not, Noah shot back. You just hear what you want so you can play the victim. I'm not playing anything, Tate yelled. You're the one pushing me away. I'm trying to breathe, Noah shouted. There's a difference. Then go, Tate snapped suddenly. Go breathe somewhere else. Noah froze for a second. Tate pointed toward the door. Go on, leave, that's what you want, right? Noah's jaw tightened. Don't do that. Do what? Tate challenged. Call you out. Make it all or nothing, Noah shot back. It's not that simple. It is to me, Tate shouted. You either stay or you don't. That's not how life works, Noah yelled. It is right now, Tate snapped. They stood there, both breathing hard, anger crackling between them. You're impossible, Noah muttered. And you're already halfway out the door, Tate shot back. Don't pretend you're not trying to leave. Noah shook his head, exhausted and furious. You know what? This is exactly why I said what I said, because you don't listen, you just react. And you just lie, Tate fired back. At least I admit it, Noah shouted. Yeah, Tate said bitterly, after the damage is done. Silence hit again, but this time it was worse, heavy, raw. Neither of them is backing down, neither of them is willing to fix it. After the doors had slammed, Tate's first, then Noah's, the house had gone completely silent. Even Talia, all the way on the 4th floor, had heard it and sighed, knowing better than to get involved. Noah sat in the spare room for the afternoon, staring at nothing, jaw tight, the fight replaying over and over in his head until it started to feel stupid, exhausting, pointless. Eventually, he got up around 8 that evening. He walked down the hall and knocked on Tate's door. Hey, you in there? Silence. He knocked again, louder this time. Tate. Nothing. Noah exhaled, then tried the handle. It turned, unlocked. That alone told him everything. Tate wasn't answering, but he wasn't actually shutting him out either. Noah pushed the door open slowly. The room was dim, just the lamp on, the overhead light off. Tate was on the bed, face buried in the pillow, lying on his stomach like he just collapsed there and refused to move. Noah walked in, shut the door behind him, and crossed the room. Tate's mattress dipped when he sat down beside him. Are you okay? Noah asked. No answer. I'm sorry, Noah said after a second, quieter this time. Sometimes you piss me off, you get under my skin and I say terrible things. He rubbed his face. I didn't mean anything I said to Maya or to you, I just needed space. Nothing. Tate didn't even turn his head. Are you just going to hide in here all night? Noah asked, a little sharper now. Maybe, Tate muttered into the pillow, voice muffled and trembling. Noah hesitated, then pulled his sweater off and shifted, lying down beside him, facing his back. I really am sorry, Noah said again. Tate didn't move, then after a long beat. You're an asshole, Tate muttered. Noah let out a short breath. Yeah, and you're the guy who peeps at people's doors. Tate's head turned slightly at that. I wasn't peeping, he snapped. I was walking by, you were loud enough. Oh, please, Noah scoffed. You just happened to be standing outside the door, breathing like a psycho. I wasn't. Tate pushed himself up slightly, annoyed now. I wasn't peeping, you wanted me to hear. Noah smirked faintly despite himself. Maybe, he admitted, it was kind of funny. Tate glared at him. Yeah, real hilarious. Noah sighed, the smirk fading. I said I'm sorry. Tate rolled his eyes and turned away again. You always say that. Because I mean it, Noah shot back. What do you want me to do, grovel? Tate didn't answer. Noah pushed himself up on one elbow. Seriously, what do you want so you forgive me? That did it. Tate suddenly rolled over and grabbed Noah by the waist, pulling him down hard on the bed so he was half on top of Tate. Tate, careful, Noah warned. Sleep in here, Tate said. Noah stiffened. Tate, no, I'm not sleeping in here. Tate's grip tightened. You want to be forgiven, you stay. Noah let out a disbelieving laugh. You're kidding. No. That's not how this works, Noah said, trying to pull back. You don't get to make conditions like that. Tate didn't let go, I just did. Noah shoved at his shoulder. This is manipulative. Call it whatever you want, Tate shot back. Stay. No, Noah said firmly, I'm not doing that. Tate's eyes narrowed. Then don't expect me to forgive you. Noah scoffed. So that's it, I don't sleep here, you stay mad forever, that's your big plan. If you move back in, Tate said, ignoring the sarcasm, I'll forgive you. And if I don't, Noah challenged. Tate's expression went cold. I'll find a way to incentivize you. Noah stared at him. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise, Tate shot back. Oh my gods, Noah muttered, running a hand through his hair. You're unbelievable. And you're already halfway out the door, Tate snapped. Don't act like you're not. I'm not leaving tonight, Noah shot back. I just want my own space for once without you acting like it's betrayal. This is betrayal, Tate fired back. You go from this, he gestured between them, to locking yourself in another room like I don't exist. Because you won't let me breathe, Noah snapped. And you won't stay, Tate shot back. I'm still here, Noah yelled. Not really, Tate yelled back. They stared at each other, breathing hard, the argument flaring back up like it never stopped. You're exhausting, Noah muttered. And you're impossible, Tate shot back. Noah tried to shift again, but Tate's arms were still locked around him. Let go, Noah said. No. Tate. No. Noah exhaled sharply, frustrated, but didn't fight as hard this time. You're insane, he muttered. Yeah, Tate said quietly, and you're staying. Noah stared at him for a long second, then finally dropped his head back onto the pillow with an irritated sigh. Only for tonight, Tate, just stop crushing me. Tate didn't answer right away, he just held on tighter, like if he let go even for a second, Noah would disappear. We'll see about that, Tate scoffed before we fell asleep side by side. Noah wondered if Tate had pushed things this far on purpose, if the fight had been a kind of pressure test designed to make me crack, to make me say something honest and fragile so he could hold it against me until I gave in again. I didn't want to believe that about him. I loved him too much for that, but loving Tate had never stopped me from seeing his patterns. He had always known how to get what he needed from me, not out of cruelty, never that, but out of fear. He wanted comfort. He wanted reassurance. He wanted the sameness we'd built our lives around, and for a long time I had given it to him without question, even when it cost me pieces of myself. I had never said no before. I had never drawn a line and meant it. To Tate, boundaries felt like rejection, like loss. He didn't see them as protection, only as distance. That was why I had moved my things out of his room. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much. Because sleeping beside the person you love while knowing you can never be what they want or have what they don't offer slowly breaks something inside you. Lying there now, inches apart, I felt the intimacy of our closeness like a quiet ache. The warmth, the history, the gravity that still pulled at me no matter how hard I tried to resist it. I had no idea how I was going to survive the next 7 nights without slipping back into old habits, without pretending that closeness meant the same thing to both of us. I stayed facing him perfectly still, letting the moment pass without acting on it. I told myself that this restraint was what growing up looked like, that choosing not to reach out was its own kind of care. Tate never stirred. He slept on, unaware of the tenderness and resentment braided together in the dark between us. I woke around 6 in the morning. It was still dark, the kind of dark that presses in on you and makes every thought louder. I hadn't slept well. How could I, with the most beautiful, most impossible person I knew lying less than a few centimeters from my knee? Tate was still holding my hand, our fingers woven together with the kind of intimacy only people who have known each other forever can share. It felt natural and wrong at the same time, familiar, dangerous. I wanted to leave. I needed to before Tate drove me crazy or out the door. Being this close to him was so much harder than sleeping down the hall, harder than pretending distance was enough to save me. My body betrayed me, no matter how hard I tried to will my raging heart on down because it had other plans. It hurt, which pushed me to untangle myself from Tate to escape to the bathroom and relieve myself. I begged myself to think of anything else, my mother, my father, the most unappealing faces I could summon, but nothing worked. Proximity had its own gravity. Judge me if you want, but if your bare butt was flush to the nude genitalia of the person you loved, breathing the same air, feeling the warmth of their skin through the sheets, you would struggle too. Panic crept in sharp and sudden. I had to get out of here before Tate woke up, before he noticed, before he looked at me and saw something ugly or shameful reflected back at him, before I ruined what little fragile peace we had left. Carefully, painfully slowly, I tried to loosen my fingers from his, praying the room would stay quiet, praying he wouldn't pull me back. He shifted again, closer, too close. His arm tightened, fingers tangling in my hair as his head tilted forward, pulling me back against him in a slow, unconscious motion. I froze. He was still asleep. I could hear it in his breathing, deep, uneven, unaware, his body moving on instinct alone, repeating the same thoughtless pull over and over like muscle memory without permission. Panic flared sharp and hot in my chest. I didn't know whether to shake him awake or stay perfectly still. His hand drifted searching, and the sensation sent a jolt through me I didn't want, didn't ask for, my body reacting in ways that made my stomach twist with shame and fear. I moaned, unable to keep the wonderful sensation from breaking through my lips. He was dead to the world, but I wasn't. He kept rubbing my bare thigh, and I was held captive under his grip, forced to endure the feeling of not being in control. His jerking motions were hard enough that I felt the point of no return nearing, which terrified me. I hoped he would rouse or stop his ministrations, but neither happened. A sound slipped out of me before I could swallow it back. I hated that my body reacted at all, that it betrayed me while my mind was screaming no. He was still dead to the world, breathing slow and even, unaware that I was wide awake and spiraling. He kept shifting in the same absent pattern, pressure repeating where it shouldn't have, his grip firm enough that I couldn't just slide away. I felt trapped inside my own skin, caught between panic and a physical response I didn't consent to and couldn't shut off. Fear surged sharp and cold. Not because of what he meant, but because I wasn't in control. My heart pounded as I realized how close I was to something irreversible, something that would leave me ashamed and terrified in the morning light. Tate's expert movements over my private area ignited arousal and flushness over my entire body. I couldn't control my limbs and shuddered because he was that good at what he was doing to me. I came hard in my pants and screamed, not loud, but enough that I immediately covered my mouth with a sheet, riding out the waves of pleasure coming from where Tate's sleepy hands were slowly gripping my dick. He stopped his hands 30 seconds later and pulled me close, whispering in my ear the last thing I ever wanted to hear at a time like this. Tate moaned. Emily then kissed my cheek. He murmured a name in his sleep. Emily. For a second time since my party, something inside me cracked clean through. It wasn't me Tate thought he was holding. The truth landed all at once, cold, humiliating, final. Whatever his body had been reaching for in the dark, whatever instinct had taken over, it wasn't me. I was just the place his confusion had landed. I went still. He shifted, sighed, and settled again, completely unaware, sleep wrapped tight around him, protecting him from the damage he'd done. I lay there shaking, feeling used in a way that had nothing to do with intent and everything to do with being mistaken for someone else. The person I loved most was inches away, breathing softly, and had no idea he'd hurt me worse than words ever could. I stared into the dark, jealousy curdling in my chest, not of a rival, but of a girl who didn't even know she'd taken my place without trying. I eased myself out of his arms, slow and silent, like I was leaving a crime scene. He didn't wake, and that was the worst part of all. I didn't stop shaking until I reached the end of the hall. Noah thought back to when he had met Mark at the cinema the day after Tate had cornered him in the blue house and forced the blonde to stay. Noah had gone to the cinema to rewatch the 1986 film Lucas, starring Corey Haim. The story had always stuck with him, a young boy hopelessly crushing on a girl who didn't feel the same, choosing a jock instead. It felt painfully familiar, like a straight version echo of his own life, close enough to recognize but distant enough to hide behind. After the film showing, Noah had slipped out early, needing space, needing to be alone with his thoughts. That's when he met Mark. Noah was about to rise from his seat in the theater when he felt someone lean forward behind him, chin briefly settling onto his shoulder as if it belonged there. "I've seen you here about 50 times, the voice said, low and curious. "Why do you like this particular movie?" Noah's breath caught in his throat. He didn't turn right away, the question hung there. Too casual for how close it felt. "It kind of reminds me of my home life," Noah said at last, honesty slipping out before he could reshape it into something safer. A quiet laugh came from behind him. You look like someone who could be a Lucas, the guy added like it meant something. Then the presence behind him shifted, just enough for Noah to finally turn his head. Recognition hit before he could stop it. Hi Mark, Noah said softer now, I am Noah. Would you like to get a cup of coffee? Mark smiled like the question was easy, like it didn't carry any weight beyond the moment. Noah hesitated only a second before nodding. Yeah, he said, okay. It's been a rough week, Noah added as if that explained everything and nothing at all. Mark didn't press him, he just stood, motioning lightly for Noah to follow. In the coffee shop, the world felt softer at the edges, steam rising from machines, low conversation, cups clinking against saucers. They took a small table near the window. Mark ordered a cappuccino. Noah copied him without much thought, like he was borrowing a decision from someone who seemed more certain about how things worked. When the drinks arrived, Mark took his first sip easily, familiar with the heat and foam. Noah wasn't. The first taste surprised him, bitter, then warm, then strangely comforting. He stared at the cup like it might explain itself if he looked long enough. He took another sip anyway. So, Mark said after a pause, resting his elbows lightly on the table, who's your Maggie from the movie? Noah blinked at him, a little thrown by how quickly Mark had picked up on what he'd said earlier. Noah didn't know how to answer without exposing something he wasn't ready to put into words. Just someone I've lived with and known most of my life, he said instead, keeping his gaze fixed on the rim of his cup. It wasn't a lie exactly, it just wasn't the truth in any form that would survive being spoken aloud. Mark nodded like that was enough, like he didn't need more to fill in the blanks. Then, casually, as if it belonged in the same category as coffee preferences or movie opinions, he added, I'm currently dating a nice guy named Chris. Noah's eyes lifted slightly. We met a few years ago when I was just out of high school, Mark continued. He's 2 years older than I am, he's good to me. He said it without hesitation, without checking the room for permission, without lowering his voice, as if it were something that needed to be hidden in the first place. For a moment Noah just stared at him. It wasn't a shock exactly, it was more like his mind refusing to match what it was hearing with the rules it had been taught to follow. People didn't just say things like that, not out loud, not like it was normal. But Mark had, and nothing had broken. The realization sat strangely in Noah's chest, uneasy, sharp, and unfamiliar. Mark took another sip of his cappuccino, watching him over the rim of the cup like he already understood the reaction. Noah looked down at his own drink again, fingers tightening slightly around the warm ceramic. Oh, he said quietly, like it was the only response he could safely offer. Noah's face turned red almost immediately, heat rising fast enough that he lifted the cappuccino mug and hid behind it like it could erase him from the conversation. The ceramic was warm against his palms, but it did nothing to steady the way his thoughts were scattering. Mark didn't call him out on it, he just watched him for a second, then smiled, easy, unbothered. I'm not out to my parents or anything, Mark said, like he was filling in the space Noah didn't know how to respond to. They live in Boston, they're pretty conservative. He took another sip before continuing, voice still calm. Chris and we've been together since he took my virginity. I made it through college and I'm trying to go for my master's degree now, but it's a slow process with work and everything. There was no shame in the way he said it, no hesitation, just a fact. Then, like he hadn't just dropped anything significant at all, Mark tilted his head slightly. You have a girlfriend. Noah's grip tightened around the cup. His expression shifted, subtle, but enough. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face like the question didn't land cleanly anywhere inside him. It told Mark more than any answer could have. Mark didn't push, he just waited, watching Noah carefully now, the earlier casual ease settling into something quieter. Do you want to come back to mine? Mark asked, like it was a natural extension of coffee and conversation. It's a few blocks from here. Noah hesitated, the warmth of the cappuccino still sitting oddly in his chest. Okay, he said before he really had time to think it through. They left the cafe together, the street noise replacing the quiet hum inside. Outside, the air felt colder than Noah expected, sharper against his face. As they walked, Mark glanced over at him again. "You're 18, right?" Mark asked. Noah slowed slightly. "Why do you ask?" he said, more guarded now. Mark let out a small breath, like he was choosing his words more carefully this time. "Because I don't bring people back to my place if I don't know that things are legal and consensual," he said plainly. "I'm not trying to make anything weird, I just don't do gray areas." He kept walking, giving Noah space instead of pressure. Noah didn't answer immediately. The question didn't feel simple in his head, not because he didn't know the number, but because nothing about the moment felt clearly defined anymore. After a beat, Mark slowed a little too, matching his pace. "You don't have to decide anything right now," Mark added, quieter. "We can just talk, or I can take you home if that's better." Noah looked at him, still unsure, but the pressure that had been building started to loosen slightly, not gone, just no longer tightening around him as sharply. Once they arrived at Mark's place, he unlocked the door and stepped aside, holding it open for Noah to go in first. Noah stepped inside and paused for a second, taking in the space. "You have a lovely place," he said quietly. "Thanks," Mark replied, closing the door behind them and setting his keys into a bowl near the entryway with an easy, practiced motion. There was a calm order to everything, clean surfaces, soft lighting, nothing chaotic or loud. Mark glanced at Noah as he hung his jacket up. "You should be really careful who you go home with," he said, not unkindly. "It's not wise to just go home with anyone, there are a lot of weird people out there." Noah shifted slightly, absorbing that without really arguing it. "Okay," he said after a beat. Mark studied him for a second longer, then nodded once like he'd said his piece. "Do you want something to eat?" he asked, changing the tone a little. "I can make BLTs." Noah's expression eased slightly at that. "Yeah," he said, "sure, I like extra bacon." That earned a faint smile from Mark as he moved toward the kitchen. "Noted," he said. Noah hesitated as Mark moved around the kitchen, the sound of bacon starting to sizzle filling the space. "Won't Chris be angry that you see other people?" Noah asked carefully. Mark glanced over his shoulder, calm as ever. "I can see whoever I want," he said simply. "Chris and I have an understanding, he's only here about 10 days a month anyway, he travels for work most of the time." Noah blinked slightly at that, trying to process it. "He works mostly in Europe, the Americas, the Philippines," Mark continued, focusing on the pan as he spoke. "He told me early on that I can live my life when he's away, we're honest about it." The bacon hissed softly as he flipped it. "Would you like some water?" Mark asked, tone shifting back into something more practical. "You can help yourself from the fridge, there's fruit too if you want it." "Yeah, thanks," Noah said. He moved to the fridge and pulled out a sealed bottle, twisting it open and taking a cautious sip. The cold water grounded him a little. "This is pretty good," he said, nodding slightly toward the bottle. Mark gave a small hum of acknowledgement. "A friend of mine is the CEO of the company," he said. "He gives me a deal on it." Noah looked at him for a second, then back at the bottle, like he was reassessing something very ordinary. Mark added more seriously now, "Just be careful with things like that. Drinks, food, don't accept anything from strangers unless it's sealed. There are a lot of not-so-good people out there." He glanced toward Noah briefly. "Especially in spaces like gay bars," he said, matter of fact. "Have you ever heard of Dahmer?" Noah paused, bottle halfway to his lips. Mark didn't wait long for an answer. "If you haven't," he said, turning the bacon again, "you might want to read up on it, just stay aware." Mark kept working at the stove as he spoke, layering the bacon onto the bread with steady, practiced movements. "If you're going to go bar hopping in the gay community," he said, voice even, "do it with at least one other friend, don't go alone." He paused to adjust the heat, then continued without looking up. "And don't take drugs or drink anything heavily unless you're with people you trust. People who actually care if something goes wrong, if you have a reaction or you pass out or something worse." The sandwich sizzled lightly as he pressed it down. "I lost a friend when I was 18, Mark added, a bit quieter now. "Drug overdose, fentanyl, he wasn't with anyone who would have stepped in. By the time anyone noticed, it was too late." For a moment the kitchen felt tighter, the air heavier despite the calm way Mark was speaking. He exhaled once, then slid the sandwich onto a plate. Better yet, he said, tone returning to something more matter-of-fact, just avoid illicit substances altogether. Drugs, unsafe drinking, anything like that, it's not worth it. He set the plate down, finally looking over at Noah. Food's ready. Mark slid the BLT onto a plate and set it in front of Noah. Here you go. Then, almost seamlessly, he kept talking as he assembled his own sandwich, adding avocado with careful, practiced movements. Another thing, he said, tone steady, like he was continuing a checklist rather than lecturing. If any guys you meet at those places ever want to take your picture or start saying you'd be a great model, don't go to their house. He glanced briefly at Noah, then back to his food. I can teach you a few things about the gay community if you want, Mark added. Or better yet, there's a book I read when I first came out as bisexual. He nodded toward a shelf in the living room area, as if it were just part of the space. It's over there. If you want to read it, you can, and if you have friends or people you know who might benefit, you can pass it on. It covers what to avoid, how to navigate things, what not to do when situations start going wrong. He set the knife down and slid into his seat with his own BLT, avocado peeking out from the edges. Anyway, Mark said, finally softer, food's ready. He took a bite like the conversation had simply folded into something normal, leaving Noah with the plate, the room, and everything Mark had just said sitting quietly between them. The BLT was unexpectedly good, crisp, layered, and seasoned with a kind of confidence that suggested Mark didn't just cook, he knew what he was doing. There was a depth to the flavor that felt deliberate, like each ingredient had been chosen and adjusted rather than just thrown together. Mark added a small scoop of risotto beside Noah's plate, setting it down with the same casual precision. Noah looked at it, then at him. What's bisexual? He asked. Mark's expression softened a little, not surprised, just attentive. He pulled a bar stool closer and sat at the kitchen island so they were on the same level. It just means you're attracted to more than one gender, Mark said. Boys, girls, or more than one kind of person. Different people define it slightly differently, but that's the general idea. He paused, then added a small, slightly self-aware smile. There's a stereotype that bisexual people are more promiscuous, but that's mostly a myth. Mark leaned back slightly on his stool, thinking for a second. My family probably wouldn't really understand it, he said. They're older. My parents were born before World War II, so they didn't grow up with any kind of language or culture around this stuff. It's just not something they were exposed to. He took a bite of his sandwich, as if letting the explanation settle naturally into the space between them rather than forcing it to mean anything more than it did. Noah nodded slowly, taking in what Mark was saying, more than fully understanding it. I don't know anyone like that, Noah admitted quietly, gay or bisexual people, at least not that I know of. Mark gave a small hum, not judgmental, just acknowledging. That's more common than you'd think, he said. A lot of people just don't talk about it openly. There was a brief pause. The room felt quieter now, the food cooling slightly between them. Mark leaned back a little, watching Noah for a moment longer than before, then his expression shifted, like he was reconsidering the direction of the conversation entirely. Hey, he said more gently, you seem a bit overwhelmed. We don't have to turn this into a whole lesson or anything. He took a sip of water, then added, you can just eat, relax, and head out whenever you want, no pressure. The shift changed the air, less instruction, more space. Would it be okay if I kissed you? Mark asked. Noah froze. His face went red almost immediately, heat rushing up his neck as he stared down at his plate like it might give him instructions on how to respond. I've never had a guy kiss me before, he said quietly. Mark gave a small, reassuring smile. You're not missing anything life-changing, he said lightly. It's just a moment, it doesn't define you. He leaned back slightly, giving Noah space instead of closing it. And it's okay if you're not ready, Mark added. You don't owe me anything. Curiosity doesn't have to turn into action. Noah swallowed, still visibly unsure, caught between curiosity, pressure, and not knowing what the right answer was supposed to be. After a moment, Mark lifted a hand slightly, stopping the moment from moving forward. Hey, he said more softly, we can just eat, that's fine, you're safe here, no expectations. The air loosened a fraction, the choice no longer hanging as a demand, just as something that could be left unmade. Noah's heart pounded like a drum in his chest, a symphony of nerves and excitement echoing through his body as Mark's lips met his. The soft, gentle pressure sent shivers dancing down his spine, a sensation entirely new and utterly intoxicating. Mark's hands, warm and reassuring, traced patterns on Noah's chest and shoulders, each touch igniting a spark that spread like wildfire through his veins. Scene retracted, read extended version on Wattpad. Noah, his lips swollen and his body humming with unspent energy, nodded. Mark helped him sit up, his arm wrapping around Noah's shoulders, pulling him close. Noah leaned into the touch, his head resting on Mark's shoulder, his eyes closed as he tried to calm his racing heart. Mark pressed a soft kiss to Noah's temple, his hand rubbing soothing circles on Noah's back. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft and gentle. Noah took a deep breath, a small smile playing on his lips. "Yeah," he said, his voice steady. "I'm okay, I'm more than okay, actually." Mark chuckled, his chest vibrating against Noah's side. "Good," he said, his hand continuing its steady rhythm on Noah's back. "Because we're just getting started, Noah, just getting started." Mark drove Noah back as the night settled in, streetlights sliding across the windshield in soft intervals. It was close to 10 when they turned into Noah's neighborhood. "Thanks so much," Noah said as the car slowed. Mark glanced over with a faint smile. "This is a really nice area, you must come from a wealthy background." "No," Noah said quickly, shaking his head. "I just stay with a family friend, their family has some money, I guess, I'm just there." Mark hummed thoughtfully, not pressing further. "Lucky you," he said lightly as he pulled up to the curb. He parked and stepped out first, walking around to Noah's side before opening the door for him. The gesture was easy, practiced. He held out Noah's red coat. "Here's your coat." Noah blinked at it, then laughed slightly. "Oh yeah, that's actually yours." Mark tilted his head. "We'll keep it with you for now," he said. "Next time we run into each other, you can give it back." Noah hesitated, then nodded. Mark reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, offering it to him. "If you want to call me or set up another, explore each other date," he said, casual but deliberate, "you can reach me here." Noah took it, looking down at the card for a second. "Have a good night, handsome," Mark added, softer now. Then, briefly, just a light, familiar gesture, he squeezed Noah's cheek in passing before stepping back. He got into his car, started the engine, and drove off down the quiet street, leaving Noah standing under the streetlight with the card in his hand. Noah remembered those early days with a kind of quiet warmth, the edges of them softened by time. He and Mark had met a few more times since that first night, always in public places, always simple enough. Coffee, food, long conversations that drifted between caution and curiosity. Mark had settled into something steadier in Noah's life than Noah had expected him to become. A mentor in the way he explained things without forcing answers. An older presence who seemed to understand certain corners of the world Noah hadn't even realized he was stepping into yet. Noah hadn't told him he was gay, not directly, not in words that felt final or permanent. But he was pretty sure Mark already suspected. Mark never pushed, he never treated it like something to extract or define. He just talked, occasionally shared his own experiences when it fit, and let Noah figure things out at his own pace. And somehow that made it easier. For Noah, it wasn't a confession he had to prepare anymore. It was just something he carried, slowly becoming less heavy the more it was allowed to exist without pressure. Now, walking back toward the blue house, he kept the red coat draped over his arm so it didn't feel too obvious. It wasn't shame exactly, more like privacy, something still too new to explain out loud. He pushed inside quietly. The house felt familiar in the way large, lived-in places sometimes did, soft noise in the background, rooms that held other people's lives even when they weren't speaking. Noah adjusted the coat slightly as he stepped in, making sure the book stayed tucked away beneath it. For a moment he just stood there, breathing evenly, as if crossing a threshold back into a different version of himself. Noah lay in Tate's bed in the present, the weight of everything happening in the house pressing in from all sides. Tate's girlfriend's presence made the room feel smaller, like there was no real space left for him to exist without being noticed, interpreted, or moved around. He didn't say anything at first. Then he sat up. The decision didn't feel fully thought through so much as necessary, like staying where he was had become harder than leaving without a plan. Noah slipped out of the room and moved quickly through the house, keeping his footsteps quiet. The third-level bathroom was the only place he could think of that gave him a door, a lock, and a few minutes of silence. Once inside, he shut it behind him and leaned against it for a second, breathing a little unevenly. The noise from the house felt distant but still there, life continuing without adjusting for him. The moment Noah shut the bathroom door, he ran to the sink and doubled over it. There wasn't a toilet on the third-level bathroom, just the sink, the mirror, and a tight space that suddenly felt too small for how his body reacted. He vomited hard, then again, the sound catching in his throat and spilling out in uneven waves. His hands clutched the edge of the counter, knuckles whitening as he tried to stay upright. It didn't stop quickly. It kept coming in bursts that left him shaking, breath unsteady, vision slightly unfocused. For nearly 10 minutes it came and went like that, his body reacting faster than anything he could think or control. When it finally eased, Noah stayed bent over the sink, breathing through his mouth, waiting for the trembling to settle. His throat burned. His hands felt unsteady as he turned on the faucet and rinsed his mouth, watching the water swirl away like it could take the rest of it with it. But the feeling didn't leave with it. He straightened slowly, eyes flicking to the mirror. He didn't really look at himself, just past himself, like making eye contact would make everything too real. The bathroom still felt too tight. After a second, he reached for the shower handle. Water hissed to life. He stepped in fully clothed at first, then hesitated, peeling off what he needed to in quick, automatic movements, dropping them somewhere out of sight. The hot water hit his shoulders and head, and for a moment it was almost overwhelming, then slowly grounding. He stood there under it, letting it run down his face, his hair, his arms, like he could rinse off the heaviness of everything that had built up inside him. The sound of the water filled the room, soft but constant, replacing the noise in his head with something steadier. Noah pressed one hand against the tile wall, breathing slowly now, trying to let his body settle back into itself. Downstairs, life in the house continued as if nothing had shifted. But up here, behind a locked door under the shower's steady stream, Noah stayed still long enough for the shaking to start fading, just enough to think about what came next. Under the shower, Noah finally stopped trying to hold anything together. The water hit his shoulders in a steady, indifferent rhythm, but it didn't smooth anything out. It only made the break inside him more visible, like everything he'd been avoiding had finally found somewhere safe enough to fall apart. He cried until his breathing didn't feel like it belonged to him anymore. It wasn't quiet, it wasn't controlled. It came in waves that left him shaking between them, one hand braced against the tile as if the room might tilt without it. The steam blurred the mirror, but it couldn't blur what he already knew. When he walked in on Tate and Emily, something had shifted, something he'd tried to ignore ever since. And now, under the hot water, it was impossible to pretend it hadn't meant anything. It wasn't just jealousy, it wasn't just shock. It was clarity, arriving late and uninvited. Tate didn't love him the way Noah had quietly, carefully started to need, not in the way that made space for him to be chosen fully, without hesitation, without overlap. Maybe Tate never had the capacity for that kind of love for him at all. And Noah couldn't even turn it into anger. There was nothing sharp enough in it for that. Just a heavy, sinking acceptance that what he'd been holding onto wasn't going to become something different just because he stayed long enough. He pressed his forehead briefly against the cool tile, eyes shut, letting the water run over his face like it could wash the realization down the drain. It couldn't. It stayed. Boundaries came to him in fragments, unfinished but real enough to feel necessary. Distance. Space where he wasn't constantly measuring himself against someone else's presence, something defined, something clear, something that didn't keep him suspended in uncertainty. Maybe leaving wasn't dramatic, maybe it wasn't even a decision anymore. Maybe it was just what happened when staying stopped making sense. Noah stayed under the water until the shaking slowed, not gone, but quieter now, like something in him had finally shifted into place, even if it hurt to stand there. Noah made a decision that, once he stepped back into the rhythm of the blue house and everything that came with it, he didn't want to keep getting pulled under by the emotional weight of it anymore. If he had to be around Tate at dinners, in passing conversations, in the awkward spaces where their lives overlapped, then he would keep things contained. Simple, controlled, nothing soft enough to hurt him again. He wouldn't offer emotional vulnerability where it could be mishandled or misunderstood. He wouldn't reach for sentiment that wasn't going to be met halfway. Whatever was between him and Tate needed boundaries now, clear ones, firm ones, the kind that didn't blur when things got complicated. Because he had gotten hurt. And as much as it hurt to admit it, he could see it now with a kind of exhausted clarity. What he needed from Tate wasn't something Tate could give him in that way. Not in the romantic sense Noah had quietly drifted toward, even without meaning to. It wasn't a question of blame. It didn't make Tate wrong or cruel or even careless. It just meant they didn't line up where Noah had started to hope they might. So Noah let the thought settle into something final and practical. He would keep a distance where it mattered, keep conversations surface level when necessary, keep his feelings out of places they didn't belong. And if the only time he truly needed to see Tate now was at family dinners, around other people where things stayed structured and predictable, then maybe that was what he would do. Not as punishment. Just as protection. A quiet adjustment to a situation that had stopped being sustainable the way it was. He pulled out his phone. His thumb hovered for a moment over Mark's contact. Then he called. It rang. Noah stared at the tiles while he waited, jaw tight, trying not to overthink what he was about to ask, only that he needed out, and Mark was the first person who came to mind who would actually answer. Noah grabbed the phone from the downstairs study, his fingers clumsy against the smooth plastic, every small movement sounding louder than it should in the quiet house. He dialed Mark's number from memory, because of course Noah knew it by heart, even if he didn't want to admit what that meant. Mark was kind. Mark would understand. Mark would come. I retreated to the third-floor bathroom and softly shut the door. The cord barely reached. I sat on the tub's edge, gripping the receiver like it was my last anchor. Hello, Mark said. He didn't sound sleepy. Relief hit so hard my chest ached. Mark, I sniffled. Noah, his voice changed, instantly alert, worried. Are you okay? No, I said. The word fell apart as soon as it left my mouth. I need help, can you come? There was no hesitation. I'll be there in 15 minutes, what's the address? 1169 Casper Sebastian Avenue, I said, wiping my face with the heel of my hand. Okay, he said gently, see you soon. The line went dead. I stood there a moment longer, breathing hard, then my body made the decision for me. I doubled over and emptied my dinner onto the floor in a violent rush, my stomach rebelling as it had finally caught up to what my mind was trying not to feel. 30 seconds later it happened again, nothing left now but bile and the sharp burn of it, my body heaving until there was nothing more to give. I braced myself against the sink, shaking, tears blurring everything. I splashed water on my face, rinsed my mouth, flushed the toilet like I could erase the sound of it, the proof of how bad it had gotten. Only then did I straighten, wipe my hands and force myself to move. I went to the laundry room,